A rat. Hello, hello. How are y'all doing tonight? Oh, oh, oh. Mute that. There we go. Wow. We can see all of his little details. There are cool bugs on rats sometimes. We've definitely talked about fleas and things like that. The bubonic plague, not such a fun topic, but that was thought and told to be spread by rats. And that's somewhat true, somewhat not. Because there is a flea on him. If we can get that in again, that would be crazy. But there was definitely a little bug crawling around on him. Um, and the problem wasn't necessarily the rats for the plague, right? It was the fleas on the rats, and they transmitted the bacterium called Yersinia pestis, and that is what is actually causing the plague. And the other thing is, people think that plague is a bygone disease. You know, we don't have to worry about it anymore. I saw a post maybe a couple weeks ago that somebody in Colorado got the plague this year, the year of our Lord 2025, because it's not gone extinct. It is still a reservoir disease in prairie dogs in particular. People that get plague in 2025 almost always are not listening to signs that tell people not to walk through prairie dog colonies. So the prairie dogs have fleas that can reservoir host the plague. As far as I know, it doesn't hurt the prairie dogs in any like appreciable way, but the fleas still have it. And when they people walk through these prairie dog towns, they start falling into the holes. They get fleas on their boots or whatever. The fleas will then bite them, transmitting the plague to them. And that is how people still get the plague in 2025. Fairy Fire, you're not late. We started right on time because we had a rat, and now we're talking about the plague. So you're just here at the beginning. But yeah, so people still get the plague every year. I saw a lot of people talking about park rangers and stuff, people getting it. Yeah, it's a big thing with prairie dogs in particular. And as always, there are entomologists that are after insects that tend to live in prairie dog burrows. There are dung beetles that are specifically living in those burrows. There are clown beetles. There are staphylinids. There's all kinds of stuff that lives inside of prairie dog burrows, and the only way to get it is to go in there and try and scoop out the bugs without getting the plague. And so a friend of mine developed this technique like years and years and years ago, where you essentially duct tape a soup ladle on the end of a stick, and then you scoop out, you stick it down the burrow and you scoop out the droppings and stuff from the prairie dogs. And then you dump that out on a white sheet, and then you're able to pick out the little bit of beetles that are in there. And he calls this technique, because you're sticking your arm down a prairie dog burrow, he calls that technique plague scraping. And I've done it. There is a prairie dog colony just outside of Wichita, Kansas, where I did my master's. That is in the outskirts of like a Walmart parking lot. And I've gone out and I've put pitfall traps out there. I've gotten my own ladle on a stick, and I've gotten some pretty cool beetles out of it. But the risk for me is not necessarily worth it, because there aren't ground beetles that are in there, so I care about it a lot less. People that are into scarabs, like dung beetles and stuff, are after the really rare stuff that are in prairie dog burrows, so they care about it a lot more. I thought it was neat. I thought it was fun for the experience, but generally not my vibe. I had gloves. I had long sleeves. I was careful, but yeah, don't go touching prairie dogs, chat. You'll get the plague in 2025. We dove right into that. We got started with chat chats immediately. I didn't even get to say hello to anybody. But thank you all for being here. Posh, Goddess, Dan, probably like 4 other Dans. Sown Starlight, Alexis, Casual, Roxers, Chaos, Vasuki, Tyson. PJ, you said it was your first bug hunt, and I like kind of refuse to believe that. I trust you, but also I feel like you've been here. So I don't know, but if it is, certainly welcome in. Stoggy Froggy, awesome. Blue Mythic, hello. Donkus, another Dan, yep, I was right. Terrific, Moped Shrimp, Goddess. Speed said hello to me. Hello, how are we all doing? Welcome in from to this week's bug hunt and chat chats. Okay, random time one day, maybe. We got the donks, got the horse. You saw a chalky white cicada that wasn't very reactive. I think it was a goner. Emerald pigeon, was it totally chalky white, or was it chalky around, just like around the abdomen? Because there is a fungus that will take over cicadas, and they pass it to one another when they attempt to breed, and they will also just like lay it down on tree branches and stuff. And that fungus basically causes their butt to fall off. And that's pretty common in cicadas. You'll see it a lot, especially in those years when we have the big, like, 17-year cicada emergences. But it is still around in very low quantities in just the annual cicadas. So if it was totally chalky white, I'm not really sure what would be going on. But if it was just around the butt, I bet it was that fungus. Aw, Ams. It's very sweet. My favorite day of the week is also bug hunt. Garter snake at work. Very exciting. Wolf spider in the pasture last night. Yeah, Dr. Nick. They're probably here every night. It's a matter of if we find one again, but I have faith in our good cameraman Logan that we'll find something if it's out there. But if there is ever anything like that, you know, you can clip it and send it to me on the bug cord, ! Bug cord, if you're not in there yet. It's the Alveus Bug Lovers section of the Discord where we post bugs throughout the week, so we don't have to wait until Wednesday nights to get all of our bug energy out. There is, yes. Fairy, someone. Nuclei sent it here. Do flies actually barf every time they land? I've always been told they do, but my boyfriend thinks I'm crazy. That's one of those things where it probably stemmed from someone learning that about one species of fly one time and creating something larger out of it. I would doubt it. I doubt that every fly barfs every time. I don't even know if that's true for like an entire family of flies. They definitely do occasionally. So when they test, they're doing their little plotting scheme and whatnot, and you'll see them like kind of tapping the ground with their proboscis. They're tasting in that instance. Like that's how they're tasting. And because they need to take up liquid rather than solid foods, they do what is called extra oral digestion, which means that they're digesting their food outside of the mouth. And so that myth probably comes from the fact that, yes, they do have to essentially vomit on their food to feed. And so if they're landing on, that was like a terrifying Jurassic Park ripple there, probably from a frog or something. But yeah, I would imagine that myth probably came from the fact that they do have to like regurgitate in order to feed. So I doubt it's every time, but like they do sometimes. Striated jewel beetle, very exciting. Young jumping spiders, excellent, excellent. Goth, I'm sorry? Question mark. I don't know if it's good that I'm clearing it up or if I'm making it feel bad because it was a big lie. I don't know, whichever one's I'm sorry or congratulations, I'm not really sure. Um, but it's probably a good thing, right? That they don't do it every time. Um, yeah, I think it's probably better that they don't do it every single time. Oh, J7, I appreciate that. That's the whole goal here. A lot of these folks came in hesitant or even disliking bugs, and through slow knowledge accumulation and pro bug propaganda from Maya and everyone else at the sanctuary, and then doing these bug streams, I think we're very slowly working on bug fears moving into like at the very least bug neutral. You don't have to totally switch up and flip to becoming an entomologist. That's definitely not my goal. But like getting to a point where you can coexist happily with them, that's all we want. Sleepy Bunny, what other flies drink blood besides mosquitoes? Nikki got that for me. Yes, horseflies are another one. There are biting midges, which are the family Ceratopagonidae, that are also called sandflies, that feed on blood. They bite. Obviously, the name of biting midge gives you that idea. But ceratopagonids are also very, very important because they are the thing that pollinates chocolate. I think we've talked about this before, but it is one of my great intro facts of people who don't like bugs, especially around Halloween. I like to do outreach events where I have candy, little chocolate bars and whatnot, and people are like, oh yeah, I don't really like bugs, but I'll take your little candy, your little Snickers bar here. And I go and tell them, I'm like, well, without bugs, you wouldn't have that chocolate bar. And they all go, huh? So, pollination, right, happens when insects will go to flowers for specific rewards, usually nectar, and that means that that insect will keep going to those flowers to keep getting that sugary reward source. In the process, it flies from one flower of a certain type to a second flower of that same type, and by happenstance, gets pollen from the first flower onto the second, and that is how the plants like share their genetics around. The bees and moths and all these other bugs that do pollination aren't doing pollination to like be a homie and help out the flower. They have no concept that's what they're doing. They're getting the sweet reward from the back of the flower, and by happenstance helping that flower to reproduce. So for chocolate, I don't know if you've ever seen cacao flowers, like the really, really super tiny flowers. And so they need to have like a specialized pollinator to get in there. It's definitely too small of a flower for something like a honeybee or a bumblebee to go after. And so ceratopagonids are these little small mosquito type things. Not all of them drink blood. So Jen, to answer your question, no, not all of the ceratopagonids drink blood, sort of like the same way that not all mosquitoes actually drink blood either. But it's the same family of fly. And they're very, very tiny. They are able to get into the chocolate flower because the chocolate flower is also very, very small. And so without this little tiny ceratopagonid, I don't think it's totally mutualistic. I don't think there's only one fly that does it. But without that group of flies, there would be no chocolate. So think about that. If you've got any bug-averse friends, you can drop that one on them. That's always a good fun fact. Because everyone kind of likes chocolate. Even if they're not like a whole chocoholic, it's like every now and again, that Snickers bar really hits different. So yeah, you have a bug to thank for all of that. And there's plenty of other insects that will pollinate and be important resources for for different foods as well. You've got generalist things like honeybees and bumblebees that'll pollinate a wide variety of things. But then you also have certain hawk moths that are only pollinating vanilla orchids, where we get the flavoring for vanilla, and like vanilla beans for your ice cream and baking. There are insects in the fig wasps. We've talked about those before too, how the fig wasps pollinate from inside the fig. Other like direct benefits from insect pollination. Cucumbers, in particularly, those flowers, cucumbers and tomatoes and lots of things in the Solanaceae family, they have flowers that respond very well to buzz pollination, which is where, rather than like going down in the flower, a bumblebee would go up to it and vibrate at a certain frequency. And that frequency will dislodge the pollen from that flower to then cover the bee, because it needs to vibrate the flower in a certain frequency, again, to access the nectar reward at the base of the flower. So all of those crops benefit a lot from bumblebee pollination, specifically. Tons of native flowers get pollinated by your native solitary bees rather than like your hive bees that make honey, which are introduced from Europe. But yeah, lots of food dependent on insect pollination. Gubweed. Do most ticks drink blood? I also wonder about lice. I don't really know what lice do. Yes, so all ticks drink blood. When we're talking about mosquitoes and we're talking about horseflies, and I think ceratopagonids too, so even the little biting midges that we were just talking about, the only ones that actually ever bite you to get blood are the females. Because the females are trying to get extra protein from your blood in order to have the extra resources to make eggs. So if you've ever been bitten by a mosquito, that was a female mosquito. And the same thing for horseflies. They're always, always, always females if they're biting you. Ticks, on the other hand, both sexes feed on blood. So yes, all ticks, as far as I know, drink blood. And there are different groups of ticks. There are like hard ticks, which are the ones that you think about when you think about like Lyme disease and stuff like that. But there are also soft ticks, which sort of just look like a raisin with little tiny legs. And they are most commonly found in birds' nests. Sorry there. Didn't mean to sneeze on you. Excellent spot, Logan. A little tiny moth crawling around here through the grasses. We'll see if she pops up here in a second. Store-bought, 99. What do the males eat? So in mosquitoes and those other groups, they're feeding on pollen. Pollen and nectar. So male mosquitoes are very important pollinators as well. The females are off getting blood and, kind of ruining our campfire evenings. But the males are out during the day trying to find females. But to stock up on their resources for that, they're feeding on nectar just like a bee or a moth would be. So they are also very important pollinators. And the Ceratopogonid, the one we were just talking about that pollinates chocolate, is a fairly close relative of mosquitoes. So, like, it's a mosquito-esque type of fly that will actually pollinate the mosquitoes. Or, pollinate the mosquitoes. No. Pollinate the chocolate for you. The other one, lice. Lice are dependent. I think they do all drink blood in some form. But lice used to be characterized into two different orders. There used to be Anopleura, which were sucking lice, and then Melophaga, which were the chewing lice. So, the sucking lice are the ones that you are probably most familiar with. Like, if you ever had head lice as a kid, those are sucking lice because their mouth parts are sort of straw-like, and they punch in and feed on blood. And lice and fleas, both the males and females, will also feed on blood as well. So in flies, it's mostly just the females, or it is only just the females, I should say. But in these other blood feeding groups, it is actually both the males and females. But then the Melophaga, that's a very, very tiny and very cute little frog. I think that's one of the narrow-mouthed toads. We saw some of those when I was in Alveus a couple of months ago. We did the live bug hunt. What was I talking about? Lice and fleas. Okay. Back on track. The chewing lice, if you have ever worked with birds, feather lice, there are also lice that are specifically on like chickens and turkeys and things like that, that chew on the bases of the feathers. And the feathers, at the very base at least, do have some blood supply to them. So if there's a very heavy infestation, it can be damaging to the bird. But those ones aren't directly feeding on the blood the same way as the piercings, the Anopleran lice are, because they have to bite either the skin or the feather or whatever it is to access that blood. We talked about this on the Thanksgiving episode last year, and it'll probably make a comeback again this year in some way. But several years ago, there was an entomologist in Maryland, I believe, that went turkey hunting. And as he was preparing his turkey, taking the feathers off and everything, being the entomologist that he was, noticed that there were lots and lots of lice on this turkey. And so he put it in a bag and he froze it in order to get all of the lice off of it. And after he did that, he finished off, skinning his turkey, had his Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, but then went through and started identifying the lice that were on the turkey. And it turns out he found all 4 species of lice that are known to occur on North American turkeys on one bird. And that's like, typically you only find like 1 or 2 species on one turkey or whatever. But being an entomologist, obviously he got a little bit deeper in there, took the time to identify it, and like, who knows how many turkeys actually have all 4 species. But most people that go turkey hunting don't check the lice out after they're done. And so, yeah, I always think that's a pretty cool story of like one of those things where the entomologist had to be at the right place at the right time, because no one else would care about that thing. It's the same sort of thing. I went on vacation with my family to Aruba a few years ago, and Mom Tomology, I don't know if she's in here tonight. I didn't see her pop in, but we were in Aruba, and she was like, "You're not going to spend the whole time collecting bugs," and I was like, "Well, no, I'm going to spend most of my time drinking fun drinks on the beach, but I still will go look for bugs at some point." And so I walked across. Oh, hi, Mom. Thanks for being here. So I walked across the street, like from our resort, and I found these beetles on these little palms. And I looked at them and I was like, "Oh, these look similar. These are similar to something that I remember from when I lived in Florida." And so I took some pictures, went back to the hotel room, hopped on my laptop, and I was looking, and I was like, "Man, there are no records of this beetle, if it's what I think it is, within like 1,000 miles of this place." And so I sent the pictures to an expert who works in that group that I knew, and she goes, "Yes, I'm like 90% sure that is the thing that you think it is. It shouldn't be in Aruba, or at least we don't know it to occur in Aruba yet. So try and get specimens." And I didn't have collecting permits for Aruba. And so I was like, "Oh man, we gotta hustle," because we only had a couple days left in our vacation. And I had to figure out, Nicole, hello. We had to figure out how to get permits. So I had to call the USDA. I had to call a bunch of people to figure out what I had to do to get these bugs home. And I had to go to a government office downtown on the last day of our vacation. It took us like 3 hours, but we got all the paperwork sorted out. I got the paperwork that was allowing me to bring the bugs back. I got to customs. They asked, "Do you have anything to declare?" I said, "Yes. I have dead insects for scientific purposes. Here are my permits." The guy at the airport looked at me like I had 4 heads. He was like, "What are you? I don't care about that." And I went, "Oh, okay. Okay." Well, I got them home. I got them confirmed. It was in fact a like 1,000-mile range extension, because the closest place that they were known to occur was South Florida. And that just happened to be one of those things, like the entomologist at the right place at the right time sort of thing. Anyone else would have probably not noticed or not known that those insects shouldn't be there. But it was something that I was aware of. I recognized it, and I got a paper out of it. So while I was on vacation, I got to write an article, which is pretty neat. This has to be a katydid. Excellent comms, Dr. Nick. I saw you point this out like twice. This almost certainly has to be a katydid with just how long the antennae are. I think we're looking at the face right now. So we are looking like straight down at the katydid's head, and it's cleaning its antenna or doing something right now. So I think that's what we're looking at. That's the only thing I can think of that has antennae that long. Oh yeah, Nicole. It's the annoying thing is we spent all of that time downtown. And Mom Tomology was not that happy. She was like, we spent the last day of our vacation filling out paperwork. And I was like, well, if you don't want me to get arrested at the airport, we kind of had to do this. And so we got there, we did everything by the books, and the guy at the airport could not have cared less. But I know for a fact if we were like, oh, it's just like a handful of bugs, we'll just take him back without, without going through the proper channels. That's how you get Evan in jail for bug crime. So I'm glad we went through the process. It was kind of a pain in the butt, but we did everything correctly, which was good on us. Bug crimes, yeah, we try not to do those, especially as someone who works in the field. Definitely don't do bug crimes. Yeah, Nicole, I'm telling him about the Aruba paper. I think I've sent that to you before. So yeah, it was international coming back. So we filled it out. We did everything correctly, which I'm glad we did. But yeah, I probably would have been a lot more happy if they actually like looked at my papers at any point. Little Katie did. Oh wait. I think it is another young Katie did. Yeah. Sorry. That's funny. Um, Zoom and enhance. There we go. I'm going back and forth, chat. I think I'm gonna call this another young Katie did. Um, there are other things that look similar. There are these things called tree crickets. It's a I typically treat it as a subfamily. I don't know what the current classification is right now. But the oacanthines are very katydid like in shape. But for whatever reason, it's just not like fully giving me um tree cricket vibes off of that. Oh, that's cool. That's a spider. It seems like it's floating around, but it's definitely like on a piece of web. Um, but the tree crickets are really neat because if you've ever heard that, I don't want to necessarily call it an old wives' tale or like a myth, but if you ever heard that thing that you can tell the temperature from how fast the crickets are chirping, that's sort of true sometimes. So the temperature scale thing does not work with every cricket. That's where a lot of people are like, oh, well, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, you were testing it with the wrong cricket. The snowy tree cricket specifically is the one that they were talking about they did, when they were talking about the temperature thing. So the temperature calculation, whatever it is, does work. But you need to make sure that you're listening to a snowy tree cricket and not something else in order to do those calculations. Which I think is pretty neat. I think it's cool that that's real. I definitely tried it as a kid, not knowing that it had to be that specific species. And I kind of remember it not working, but probably because I wasn't listening to the right one. Nicole, yes, definitely. I can't. Because I'm really not trained on it, but people that work on katydids and crickets and things like that, they do and can recognize stuff by sound. They also will take and like inventory sound recordings with specific specimen with specific specimens. So if you go to a museum, you can go and like have the cricket pinned in a collection, but then you have another accession number under it that leads to like an audio file somewhere else in the museum that is a recording of that exact cricket. And the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia is like really big on this. They have one of the world's foremost experts on like cricket acoustics there, Dan Oddie. He's very, very cool. But I was there a couple of years ago when they were starting to work on the transcription of it, of like cutting out the other nighttime sounds around it, and like all of the talking of like, oh hey Bill, I grabbed it, I got it. You know, and it's really funny listening to some of those field things, because when you're going out, you're chasing bugs, and it's like active. You know, you can sneak up on the cricket all you want, but then it starts hopping away. There's some very, very funny audio in there where it's like he sneaks up on it, and then you hear him like lunge for it and miss. So you hear branches cracking and leaves and whatnot, and he just goes, oh shit. And then like a couple of very heavy steps behind the gravel, so you hear like the boots crunch and everything, and then he just goes, ah yeah, and like grab the cricket. So it's very cool doing those transcriptions. It's not an area of expertise that I have by any means. Ground beetles don't make noise, so I don't have to ever worry about doing sound. But I imagine it's the same way that people learn bird calls. They can tune their ears into figuring out crickets and katydids. So, like, I started birding in 2021. I know a couple of bird calls, but certainly not all of them. But you can tune in to certain species by their call. And it's the same thing for cicadas as well. You can do the same thing with cicada calls. The last time that I was home during one of the big emergences, the Brood X emergence, there was a guy out at this park in New Jersey where I was going to try to collect all of these crickets, or collect all of these different cicadas. And he was out there with like one of those parabolic microphones trying to get recordings of all of the different species. Which is very cool, and acoustics is like pretty neat, and I think it's awesome, but it is not something that I have a ton of experience with personally. Now this is interesting. What do we think about this one that we've been following around? Oh, we've lost it. Did we think cricket, or did we think katydid? Or didn't we know? Cricket, 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 cricket. Yes. Can anyone articulate why they felt it was a cricket? Or was it just vibes? Fat butt, fatter than a katydid. It be like it is vibes. You know, that's totally fair. I've definitely told you all that identifying stuff is hard, and sometimes it is like 100% vibe based. You were right. It was a cricket. Uh, Beeger, I'm getting there. I will tell you. It had spiky legs, which is not necessarily a difference between crickets and katydids. Sometimes katydids will have spiky legs, but crickets will always have spiky legs. But the big thing that I noticed were the cerci and the ovipositor in the back. So it had those two long projections off the back of the butt. And crickets and katydids will both have those. Katydids, however, will be very, very small and short, while crickets will have long cerci, or those feelers on the back of the abdomen. And then, additionally, the ovipositor, or as chat here calls it, the straussy, the egg-laying tube for that insect was very long and very straight and sort of needle-like. And that is a cricket character. Katydids tend to have curved or like wider. It's usually referred to as like sword shaped versus screwdriver shaped. So crickets will have a screwdriver shaped ovipositor, while katydids will generally have a sword shaped ovipositor. Logan, you're killing it at finding these tonight. Incredible that you're finding them like in the leaves where they're supposed to be camouflaged. If we were a bird, these katydids would be screwed. Jen, that's one of those vibe things where crickets are generally going to be wider and kind of heavier in the back than katydids are. But that wasn't one of the things that I was taking into account when I was trying to put a name on it, you know? They do tend to be heavier, but not always. And individuals' body proportions like that can change sometimes as they develop. If they are getting like close to a molt, they're going to be a little bit bigger. They're putting on weight to be able to split open that exoskeleton and come out a little bit bigger. And they need that extra nutrients to be able to put on that additional weight. So, yeah, the body proportions can change a little bit over time. So, not always like 100% a go-to, but if that's something that helps you identify them, and if it works like 90% of the time, that's a pretty good character for you then. Versus cricket. Soft ticks. What else did we talk about tonight, chat? I'm writing down my notes for what I talk about, or what we can put in the chat's recap. Pollination, katydid versus cricket, soft ticks. I can go back through the VOD if there's anything else. Oh, lice, right. Good. Thank you, Beeger. Lice. Chewing versus sucking. Nice. Oh, we're going back in. While we peruse our tree, anybody else have any fun bug sightings this week? Oh, plague. Duh. Yes, that was a big one. We spent a long time talking about plague. I missed my opening segment of asking if anyone had found any cool bugs. I know somebody said something about a jewel beetle, baby jumping spiders, but did anyone else have any fun bug encounters recently? caught a bee on her face in the car. I mean, that's probably not ideal for your sister. Um, reminds me of a funny story, though. When I was in undergrad, so long time ago now, there's an insect order called Strepsiptera, which are fairly closely related to beetles, actually, but they are internal parasites, typically in like the abdominal segments of bees and wasps. And so I really wanted to find one of these things. And the way that my professor told me to find them was you just have to like collect a lot of paper wasps. The little ones that make the like little umbrella nests under, roof overhangs and whatnot. If you just collect enough of those, eventually you will find one that has a strepsipteran in it. And I collected so many wasps that semester. I really wanted to find one of these things. And I could not tell you how many wasps I collected that semester, but it was a lot. It was a ton. And I still hadn't found one. So I didn't get to turn one in for my collection. The semester ended. It was like right before summer break. And I am driving somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. But I was driving somewhere. I was at a red light. And a paper wasp lands on my windshield. I can see, because strepsipterans, if you follow that link that Tortilla sent, thank you by the way, if you find the wasp, it has this like brown bump on it, and that's the actual strepsipteran. So you can see it externally. And so this paper wasp lands on my windshield. I can see that it has a strepsipteran. I am at a red light. I have nothing like ready on hand to catch this wasp with because I'm driving. I was not planning on collecting bugs. I was at a red light. And so I did what I thought, and I still stand by my decision. I opened my window, and I reached out, and I barehanded the wasp. I just grabbed it. I got stung on my palm several times. I shoved the wasp down into an old Dunkin' Donuts cup that I found in my back seat. But I got my strepsipteran. And yeah, I still think it was worth it. I would do it again. I would absolutely do it again. Since then, I have collected strepsipterans numerous times. There are other groups that are on like plant hoppers and stuff like that. So when I go through sweep nut samples, I will find them sometimes. But that rush of finding the first one, the first insect of a new order, was really, really cool. And getting stung on the hand was definitely worth it in my mind, at least. But I learned my lesson that day too, because that was like before I was really into collecting stuff. Now my center console is like filled with vials. So there would never be a situation again where I would have to do something like that. I always have vials on me now. I've got vials in my backpack. I've got vials in my car. I have a little thing on my keychain that I usually keep my my lactate in so I can drink milk because I'm lactose intolerant, but I love dairy. So I have this little like screw top pill bottle thing on my keychain. I have been known to dump out my pills in order to put a bug in the little pill container. So if there's ever a time where I don't have a vial on me now, it's very, very strange, because all of my bags and everything have vials in them. I always, always, always have vials on me to collect bugs. Back in the day, again, before I really started doing this a lot, one time, here's another fun one, now that I'm like thinking back to all my old college stories. I got off of the bus one time at my dorm, and there was a giant bug on the side of the bus. It was a big leaf-footed bug, and I was like, oh man, that's really cool. But the bus drove off before I was able to grab it. And so I just sat there. I sat at the bus stop, and I waited for that same bus. Like, multiple buses on that route came around. Obviously, I wasn't getting on them. I was waiting for that bug to come back around to me on campus. Could it have flown away? Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I was there for like 30 minutes before that individual bus came back around again. But when it did, same driver, so I knew it was the same bus. That bug was on the side of it. So I was able to actually go and get the one that I had missed before when the bus drove away. I was able to get the same individual because it also rode the bus all the way around campus. Which, now that I think about it, that thing could have flown away at any time. And for whatever reason, it didn't. It was just riding the bus. Riding the bus around campus. I need a bandolier with vials for bugs. Bree? I may have already considered that. The bandoliers that you can get that hold ammunition for a shotgun also fit the bug vials that I own quite nicely. Having a drawer completely full of empty bottles just in case for buggies. Unknown. I've got multiple drawers full of empty bottles. Different sizes, snap caps, screw-ons, ones that can hold alcohol, ones that can't. I've got every size vial, like, imaginable. And I've got multiples of all of them. Yeah, lots of vials in my house. Definitely. I've skewed towards some more than others. There are some that I like better, but like sometimes there are really big beetles. You know, if you find a Hercules beetle or something like that, that it's not going to fit in my normal collecting vial. So I have to have bigger sizes. Or like when I was living out west and there was still the possibility of tarantulas, if I wanted to bring one home or move one across the road, I needed like a even bigger container than I would for the Hercules beetle. So I have a whole bin of vials of various sorts in my car. Like I said, I also have them like in my front console in case there's ever something on my windshield that I have to get again. Tortilla, for those of you that are maybe curious of what Tortilla is talking about, I've started streaming recently. That's fun, by the way. I got a new entomological tool in the other day, and it's like an electric aspirator. So it looks like a hair dryer, sort of, but it sucks bugs in. And it's got like a trigger on it, so it does sort of look like a pistol. And so Tortilla said, no pistol in the holster, just the turbo suck. I got this thing because one of my friends has one, and I am absolutely thinking about making us custom holsters for Christmas for the bug suckers things. Jen, if capture and care for snails of the same species, will I get more snails? Almost definitely. Most land snails are hermaphroditic, which means that they've got both parts. So, if you have two snails, they will almost certainly be able to reproduce. Bandolier next time. Okay. I can arrange that. Get up ready. AMs, yes. Today I did chats tonight. I got my email about affiliate this morning. So thank you. We're gonna wrap up here soon in just a second, so I can start the plug early, I guess. But this community has been fantastic. I logged on last Monday to test my setup, and all of a sudden there were a lot of very familiar names in my chat. So thank you all very much for all the support and coming and hanging out in the streams. I raided into Alveus right before we did this, so I did about 2 hours right before we got started tonight. So if you follow, that'd be very cool. I'd appreciate it. But definitely no pressure. But there are I have a microscope that I bought that's hooked up to my PC or my laptop right now. So we're able to actually look at specimens under the microscope and zoom in pretty far. So I think that's been pretty cool. We've been able to do that and look at things a little bit closer on specimens for my collection than we have been able to zoom in on some of these things here for the live cams. This is, in fact, another Katie did. For those of you guessing, you guys did very well. CEO of the sword fight, yes. So they have love darts, I think is what the term is for them. They have like a harpoon basically that transfers the sperm between the males and the females, and nobody wants to be the one to get darted because that would mean then that you're the one that has to bear the eggs, and just like mammalian pregnancy, dealing with eggs and bearing children is a real pain in the butt. So when they mate, they try not to be the one that gets darted, because that means that then they have to carry and lay the eggs. So they try to avoid that. But yeah, if you have two snails of the same type and you're sure they're the same type, they can definitely mate. Bree, no, not yet, not quite. No RGB bug streams either, not yet, at least. But yeah, I think it's been going pretty well. We looked at some cool stuff. We've been pinning. I've been showing off my collection, my tools, my very extensive collection of forceps, my fancy bug tweezers, my really expensive, like $100 pair of tweezers. So we have fun over there. Advertise by pinning on the Discord. Interesting. I'll think about that, Fuel. Because the bug cord isn't really for that. Maybe I'll make one. I don't know. We're still figuring out. Like I said, today was my fourth stream ever, so we are still learning quite a lot. Why would tweezers cost $100? Well, I'm glad you asked. They're Swiss made, and they are for watchmaking, and so they are ultra, ultra, ultra fine tips. I thought I knew what fine tip forceps were, and then I bought these, and they were like half the thickness of my other forceps. So I got them to do very, very small dissections, is why I bought them. And they are my precious. They stay in their little clamshell packaging flat, so I don't drop them. As soon as I'm done using them, they go back into their little protective case, because it hurt enough to spend $100 on forceps once. I think the only thing that would be worse would be having to buy another pair. So we're gonna keep those nice and safe, take good care of those. But yes, that is why tweezers would cost $100. Chaos, that's funny. All right, y'all. That went super quick. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But we started off with a pretty sick view of that rat. So I will definitely post a little bit about Plague, and the modern contractual cases of Plague in the bug cord, exclamation point bug cord to join the Alveus bug enjoyers Discord. We hang out in there during the week, so if you have a fun bug sighting or something you want me to take a look at during the week, post it in there. You don't have to wait between Wednesdays. We talk about stuff. There's other very knowledgeable people in there that are able to identify stuff, as well as myself, so come hang out if you enjoy bugs, or even if you're trying to get a little bit exposure therapy. Thank you, as always, for being here. Last week was the 1-year anniversary of my first ever chat chats, so we're starting year 2 off with a bang. We're still going strong. And as long as you guys keep showing up, we'll keep doing this on Wednesdays. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all the support on my stream as well. I'm going to try not to use this plug too much for it, but I do really appreciate everybody from the community supporting it over there. Thank you, Logan, as always, for driving our cams. Fantastic operations, as always. And I'm going to call it there tonight. I will talk to you guys next week. And stick around for rounds. We check on the animals one more time before we all head off to bed for the evening. And that will start just after we log off. Thanks again, chat, and I will talk.